Okay, I was born in 1933. I grew up initially in Paua area, and then at 8 years old I moved to Kaimiki. I was raised up in Kaimiki. Attended grade school up at Kaimiki at Iolani, and then I went to high school at Iolani, the old Iolani school up at Nu'uanu. Graduated in 51, played sports, did everything. Then I went to the University of Hawaii, played sports up there. And while at the university, this is a funny story, at the university, at Iolani we didn't have any ROTC programs, so at the university I had to take ROTC. So I did, and we played three games up on the main, and when we came back, we had a test in ROTC, and I didn't know we had a test about the rifle, and I didn't know one end from the other, so I failed that test. And so it came out about a week later. It says all those who failed the test were reclassified as 1A for the Korean War, the draft. So instead of being reclassified, I left school and I went into the Air Force. And while in the Air Force, I went into the fire service. Served 4 years in fire service, and then I came out and then served 1 year at Hickam Air Force Base. And then from Hickam, I took the exam through Honolulu Fire and got into the fire service in 1957. Fortunately, I had excellent captains in my first few years. My first captain was Oliver Stone, Engine 5, Kaimiki, excellent captain. Then I was transferred, I think, because of my probationary period. 3 months later, I went to Engine 29, Macaulay, and I had Captain Rocha there, another excellent captain. And then throughout my career, as I moved up and went into fire prevention and everything else, but the other captains I'd like to mention was Captain Abel Guerrero was an excellent captain. So I had a good background with those three captains at least. Yeah. The family orientation never left the home; it stayed in the station. So that was a good thing. I think the 1980 Standard Oil fire gave me the most challenge. It was critical, and we took chances, but I had confidence in the guys. It was at, Nimitz Highway, where Standard Oil is. So 31, Engine 31, I knew the captain very well. I played ball against him in high school, and excellent captain, Captain Belfreitas. And Engine 1 was there, but a number of companies were there. But anyway, I was at home that day, and a call came in, and I always had my walkie-talkie with me. And it was a holiday. I came in, fire at Nimitz Highway, Standard Oil. So I got in my car, I looked up, I saw the smoke. So anyway, on the way down, I radioed Alarm Bureau and asked them to have Air One pick me up close to the fire, a few blocks away. So when I got there, I jumped on Air One and I took an aerial survey of what we had, and we had this major high octane tank full of liquid on fire, and we had two others, low octane, and they were almost empty. But so I observed the scene, and when I got down, I knew that each tank, if you know the setup, each tank has a berm around it. So my main concern was if we didn't get it out on time and the tank weakened, if there was an overflow and the dikes, were ruptured, the flow of gasoline would flow into the harbor. And there was a possibility we could have lost the whole harbor. So anyway, I mean, the aerials, everything were all set up, and they were using their foam equipment. And we had the ground fire, surface fire put out, so which was good. So I took a little chance, and I told Captain Freitas to have his men follow me up on the tank adjacent to the one that's burning. And I also radioed Engine 9. Engine 9 was on the east side to get up on the other tank that was adjacent to the one burning. And Captain Robert Davis was captain then. See, in that high octane tank, if you and we had pre-planned all of this before, so which made it much easier. So the high octane tank, you had a floating roof. So every time the fuel goes down, the roof goes down with the fuel. Then when you pump the fuel in, the roof goes up according to the depth of the tank. The fire was shooting out of the side of the roof because it's a flexible covering. So all the fire was just shooting out on the sides of the thing. And our aerial streams and our hand streams wasn't doing much good. So when I got Engine 31, Captain Freitas and Captain Davis, I was up there with them, with Captain Freitas, and Captain Davis was on the other tank. So I instructed them to direct their stream in one spot of the cover, the floating roof, hoping, and it worked out well, but hoping that with that pressure on that roof, we would collapse the roof and it would sink. And that's exactly what happened. So the pressure there just knocked the roof sideways and it sank. So now we had the full exposure of the tank burning. So now this is where the foam is effective. We directed all our foam streams in one area, hitting the side and let it flow. And it covered, and it extinguished the fire. Unfortunately, the surface fire that, when they had the overflow as they were filling it, the surface fire was out, so we had no breakage in the containment, the dams. So in fact, when I was giving the orders, I instructed the fireboat to come out just to patrol the harbor, just in case we had a spread. But everything worked out well, and guys did an excellent job, everyone there, and we put it out in a record time. I don't think there's any department on the mainland or anywhere else that put out a fire like that. We put it out in 5 hours and 11 minutes. So that was pretty challenging. But I have to say, we have to give credit to all the other departments. We set up the PIO, the command center and everything, and I instructed other chiefs to UB reconnaissance, UB, PIO, whatever. And so they called HICM, they called the state and everything to get all the foam that we needed, and that was great. I think I had confidence in knowing what I was doing. I was on a rescue. Naturally, you rescue, you don't know what you're up against, and you train for it. So, really, I didn't have any concern. Sure, there's always concern. I mean, everybody's concerned. But I think because of the confidence I had, the men I know, the companies, captains, and everything. You're aware, you're always aware at a fire. I had exploded gas cans all over the place, but you take precautionary measures. I cannot really say that, I was really concerned or scared. I went up on a helicopter one time and a boat snapped on a blaze, and we came down, but that was the only frightening time I had. But other than that, no, I think I was confident enough not to be really concerned. That the only thing that I really want them to feel is that I was concerned about their welfare. That was my primary concern about all the men, their welfare. I was concerned to have them think that I did a job and hopefully well enough that kept them all safe, but not really, that I was a good firefighter, and I gotta say, I was strict enough, but it was for their benefit. When I first started as a firefighter, the starting pay was $365 a month. And that's without taxes. By the time we took our pay home every 2 weeks, I think we took home about $130, $150 after taxes. And so there, okay, now the pay is, at that time, well, we felt it was okay. But we had to purchase all our own equipment. We had to purchase all our own uniforms, shoes, and we had two types of uniforms, work chambrays and the blacks. We had to purchase our own bedding. We even had to purchase our own turnouts initially, when we came in. So making that kind of money, and you had to buy everything, and we had to even purchase our own serge for our dress uniform and have it made by a tailor. So, you can see the difference, and even now, the pay scale and how the firemen are getting paid on shifts, changing shifts, relieving in shifts and things like that. Big difference. Firefighting is way different than my time. I see now the guys with all the equipment and everything else, and how on TV I see it, but on how they perform, it's so much different. Yeah. Well, the recruit, I would advise him that, we had problems. We had firefighters' problems. Is not to take advantage of the benefits and what you have in a department. Some of the younger kids now, compared to our time, they just don't realize the benefits and all the the assets and the requirements. It's all for their protection. So just don't abuse it. Enjoy your time as a firefighter. Eventually, you get promoted. That's fine. But enjoy yourself and work cohesively together. Don't be an individual. For the captain, I advise a captain to, know as much as he can in firefighting, in administration, in discipline, and be strict enough. When it's time to be strict enough, because guys are watching you, what you do, what you don't do. And we've had because of captains being lax, we've had abuses, by the men. So I just let the captain know what you're doing, be confident in what you're doing, and my thing is to train the men properly. Once you get your men trained, you got no problems, really. Oh, and the future fire chiefs, it's completely different than my time. Now I kind of feel for Chief Neves, but it's just he has to keep up with the times, and he's got tough decisions to make. Sometimes you got people that maybe not performing, and they should be disciplined, and that's important. I had a few disciplinary actions taken against some chief officers, but it has to be done. So treat everybody equally, no favoritism. You're there for the men. You're there for the people of the city and county of Honolulu. So be stern, be strict, be fair. In all honesty, I have to say this. I didn't put in for the chief's position until the last day. because I loved being flight commander. I loved that job. And I'm not a politician, so I knew the chief's job, you know, there was politics involved and everything involved. So I said, no, I'm not going to put in. But the last day, you know, my dad was ill at that time too, and I thought maybe, you know, this would be a good thing for him if I would be able to be considered for the fire chief, City County. So I said, well, in respect to him, I'm going to apply. So the last day I filed my application. Unfortunately, I was exposed to headquarters, well, as a fire inspector, but this was just in the younger years of my life. But I was chosen as a captain, and they assigned me to a training bureau. And at that time, the training bureau was situated at headquarters. And I had a super battalion chief as my chief officer in training, Chief Harold Hewitt. Very educated, very smart man. And he had a lot of confidence in me, and that's what really helped me a lot. He just, see, at that time, compared to now, we had only the battalion chief, 2 captains, and 1 lieutenant up at training. So he gave me all the responsibility of setting up classes, officer training classes. When I was up at training, we got our first helicopter. So naturally, I had to study that, and I had to set up the training in the Biripiu net, picking up all the guys and everything else. So set up the training for that. So, you know, and then what really helped me a lot was he said he was going to go on sick leave. He says he wanted me to take over the bureau. So anyway, I took over the bureau, and I had to do budget and everything else, and going out and train at the same time. So that really put a burden, you know, stress on me. But it really made me mature and gave me the experience and exposure to administration. So anyway, that happened up at training, and I was exposed to all the other bureaus up at training. So that's why I had knowledge of what was happening upstairs. And different type of, you know, the hose that we had it was all cotton jacket, and double cotton jacket with brass couplings. And we had to hold that hose one man by himself. You know, they taught you how to hold it and everything else. So compared to, you know, the nylon now you have, and the pre-connects and everything. So it was tough. It was tougher. We had to fight fires without turnouts. Maybe only jacket with no turnout pants. So when your pants started to heat up, you just wet it down and cool yourself off. So a lot of, you know, those things like that. I mean, compared to now, what these guys have is just tremendous, the protection that they have. But it was fun. It was fun, let me tell you, it was fun. The first alarm was the one that I drove the hose wagon. That was the first alarm. I mean, I can't remember anything else. Yeah, that was the one that stuck in my mind because I think the tradition still holds that your first alarm you buy cake and ice cream, right? So I bought cake and ice cream on that alarm. So that was my first alarm at Kaimiki. As a battalion chief at the 4th Battalion, and we had a call one day that a horse was stuck in the mud, down at in Eva, and so we we responded. The company responded, and one of my firefighters, Mary Cook, I never forget that. Damn good firefighter. Without hesitation, he thought it was only water. He jumped in and it was full of manure. And he went down almost to his nose. He went down, and so we had to throw a line to him and to pull him out. He thought it was just water. But we never let him leave that down, you know, when he came back. He said, nobody wants to be close to him, be close to him. So that was a fun time that I remember anyway. I enjoyed every bit of it. Yeah, we had ups and downs. I wouldn't change much. I know there's a lot of union involvement now, you know, and the chief has to handle that. But at our time, we had a union, but it wasn't as, you know, as difficult, I think, as it is now, you know, for the chief. I was fortunate, and not to spread my wings on this, but as a fire commander, I wrote up the fire command system. I went to school, you know, and came back home, and in my crude way, I started writing up the fire command system. Now it's much more elaborate, I think, but so I started that, and I enjoyed operations. Yeah, I think that was my best. Even as a fire captain, you know, your operations, you're handling your own men and that. And we had some fires that we went to. The chief commended us in our operations with the way we operated, so it was nice. I knew all the chiefs, but as far as knowing their job and handling men and everything else, Chief Blazer was tough. I got chewed out from him at one fire. But Chief Young was good, and you gave me a lot of leeway as a officer and a chief officer. So yeah, they had their strong points, you know, and they had their weak points like anybody else. I have to mention one thing though. I fired this one kid, good firefighter. He was number one in his class as a recruit, but he got involved, you know, in drugs and stuff, so I fired him. And then when in one of our chiefs' conventions, this was a few years after, our chiefs' conventions in the Big Island, they picked us up at the airport. And so when I got to the hotel, this kid opened the door for me, and I looked up, and it was the kid that I fired. And he said, "Hi, Chief." He says, "I want to thank you for what you've done for me." So he straightened himself out, and he got a job in the Hilo Fire Department. So that was great. I was thankful for Mayor Fossey giving me the run of the mill on the department, never interfered. My budget was never cut the first time in 5 years. Our budget was never touched. Prior to this, the city and county administration and always, you know, cut things in our budget. But when I was the fire chief, I can honestly say that the mayor's office or the council didn't touch a penny of my budget. In fact, when we went to council, they asked me if I needed anything else. And I thanked them. I said, if I did, then I'll come back to you, but thanks anyway. I kind of knew what the chief's job was and what he has to face. Naturally, things evolve, changes. The union comes in, so there's much more detail, you know, more meetings and, you know, challenges at times, but not really, because I learned a lot in the service too, in the fire service, in the military. You know, they gave me, as a youngster, they gave me the opportunity to be a fire chief at one of the stations in a military base. during the weekends. And I was only 24 years old, I think. And they gave me the confidence. So you learn from that, and I did, you know. I had good administrators, good budget people. And you have to rely on them. You have to rely on them. There's no way that you can remember or know everything financially, you know, what's going on. So I did, and we accomplished a lot because of them. Well, I like to think I did a 10, but you ask other people, they probably don't think so. But I tried my best, and we did a lot. I was the first to establish the PIO office. And the reason I did that is because, you know, coming up in the ranks and everything else, we never had exposure to the public. You know, I always felt that, you know, when, you know how the fireman's schedule is, you change shifts in the morning at 8 o'clock and so forth. So I feel that, you know, when people go to work, they see us standing around a station, you know, just waiting because we're waiting to change shifts, but they don't know that. You know, they see us just standing around. Then when they come home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, they see us playing volleyball. So, gee, what do these firemen do? You know, just stand around in the morning and play volleyball in the afternoon. So anyway, when I established the bureau, I told my PIO officer that, you know, we have to show the public what the firefighters actually do. So that's how we started all of this, the training, I mean, the exposure in the TV training, and I started the stop, drop, and roll that, you know, in the kids in the school. We started that program. No budget, we had zero budget, no money, so my PO officer, excellent person. Started with no budget. By the time we ended up, we were doing $20 million worth of, because we brought Mickey Mouse and Pluto and that from Disneyland down here with the kids, you know, for the kids. So I think, you know, establishing your office, the PIO office, was a big boon to our department, really a big boon. A lot of exposure, yeah. Well, I always think about the old timers. You know, I really think about the old timers because they started with almost nothing. And in the old days, this I think it was in Chief Thurston's time, the firefighters worked 1 week straight, and then they went home for a couple of days, and they came back and worked, you know, 1 week, never going home, just staying at the station for 1 week. Then as we evolved, you know, it came out that finally, just before we got in, the firefighters worked constantly, the firefighters worked constantly 24 on, 24 off, 24 on. Then when they hired us, we were the first recruit class. They hired 33 of us. And the reason they hired us, we had 33 stations at that time. So they hired 33 of us, and they put one man in each station. And that's how we started the J days. We worked 7 work shifts and then off 3 days. And then it evolved now to the schedule you folks have now. So, you know, thinking back about, you know, the old timers, I said, these guys had to put up with a lot, boy, you know, and a lot of sacrifices and type of equipment and everything compared to, you know, today. I'm just thankful that I chose this career. I started young in my life. I think when I went into the service, they asked me, what do you want? You want to be a firefighter or you want to be an air policeman? I said, a firefighter. So we started that, from that, my career started there at Hickam. And then for 4 years there, and then I got out and I went into Hickam Air Force, Hickam Fire Department. And then we took the test for the city and we got into the city. So actually, you can almost say that firefighting was my life from a youngster, was 19 years old. So, but I enjoyed every minute of it. You know, yeah, there were up and down. You know, there's times you get really upset, but there are good times too.